We're here to talk to you about copper-clad steel and why that would be a cost advantage to utilities today. So with that, and as Jim already said, we'd like you to ask questions where you feel it's appropriate, make it as interactive as we can so it's a learning experience for all. We have a problem that's been getting better understood with some time. We're going to help you understand it even more today. Copper theft. It's a significant problem to 85 to 95% of all utilities in North America. Cost in 2008 was $60 million for dealing with copper theft to the utilities. And there were death and injuries associated. And in that survey, they did not tally up how many were employees versus thieves and non-employees. We have elevated copper prices, and the elevated copper prices we'll show in just a moment are a significant issue to us. We also have conversion away from solid copper wire cable, requiring and addressing this with standards and engineering. So it's one of those time-consuming issues of evaluation. But it's a billion-dollar infrastructure issue, and we have both Homeland Security as well as the FBI indicating this is a significant problem to our infrastructure today. We have to address it. Then, turn it back to Jim.
Last year I had NRCA through our listserv do a poll through the REAs as to how it's impacting us. What we found was we were being impacted just as much as anybody, if not more. So we're not safe from any of this. It's hitting us. It's hitting us pretty hard in some places. What got me started this more than anything, we had our utility overnight, and it hit like a storm. We didn't stop for a while. A lot of the co-ops now are not strictly rural. We're butting up to urban communities. So we're getting the urban theft besides the rural theft. I think the urban theft is probably the biggest problem. Have any place where you're a large metropolitan area, you're going to have dope heads and everybody else like that.
Thanks for helping with the audio in the back there, Mike. Give us some guidance. Okay. Oh, this one's back to you, Jim.
Okay, I'll come over here and get a little closer to this and talk a little louder for everybody. This is some pictures we took of our substation thefts. Engineers in this room realize what this can do to anybody. You cut the ground on a power transformer. Not only is it a copper theft, it is a serious safety issue. And your people coming in there, not knowing this can happen, not knowing it has happened, they're in danger. They got all the ground wires going up and down the poles. You'll see that we have 10-coated wire. We've been using 10-coated wire for probably 20 years. It didn't take them very long to figure out that was copper. So that obviously wasn't going to be the solution. Also, they damaged the infrastructure of the substation. You can see the fence has been cut, and that in itself was a bad thing. It takes about half a day to put that fence back together. And then new construction, we had to actually start putting in some new breakers and a new transformer, and thank God we had our molten sub on, because they cut the high side leads off there. Any other time we would not we did that.
Okay, so we were going to, now it's really working better, okay? Said that we would talk a little bit about copper pricing and what's happening. This is a very good chart that helps us understand that in 2004, we probably didn't worry too much about copper theft, or pre-2004. In fact, $1 a pound copper, or less than $1 a pound copper, we were probably busy with other issues in our distribution and transmission lines and didn't pay a lot of attention to copper theft or the copper prices. However, from 2004 to 2012, 8-year period of time, we've seen copper go up 200%. Those of you that were buying gold a few years ago, did you buy your copper? Because you missed out on an opportunity. And We now have some information about the production and the consumption. You can see the notes here. China consumption will be 16.5 million tons by 2025. That's only 12 years away. Short period of time. We have production that's going to go from 18 million tons a year to 13 million tons a year. Notice a 3 million ton difference. So what happens to price when you have a shortage? You know about oil, gas? Okay, so guess what's going to happen to this commodity? It's copper. It's going to go up in price. Should we be planning for this? Should we be understanding where this pricing is going? Should we know that the more of it we have in our system, the greater the liability we have, and therefore the greater opportunity for a thief? These are the issues we have to plan for. This is just another graph that gives us a shorter term look at how copper is quite volatile. The volatility means it's a little bit difficult for you to plan when the thief is going to steal it and when you're going to have to replace it, and therefore your costs are perhaps not what you want them to be. And that chart was looking at an average there of about $3.50 a pound, by the way. $3.65 a pound as of yesterday, $3.70 a pound last week. Okay, so will it go above $4 a pound? A lot of people are guessing that will happen this year. Okay, why were standards requiring copper grounds? Well, it's a very good conductor. Those from the technical side here or an engineering side do understand the conducting capabilities of copper. So naturally, if you could go with the very best of conductors, that's what you'd want to do. And pre-2006, we know about what happened in 2007, 2008. It's affected a lot of us from an economic standpoint, but pre-2006 budgets were a lot better off, right? And as far as pre-2006, therefore, there was less value in stealing, less concern for being traded in, and therefore there's less stealing going on. There's a security problem that we were talking about a moment ago that the FBI has identified as far back as 2008. Metal larceny, $1 billion issue to the infrastructure in the United States. They warn people, deal with that infrastructure problem. Homeland security. Okay, they're dealing with what kind of threats we have to be protecting our citizens. Here we're addressing it from the Homeland Security Bulletin. It says avoidance techniques should be applied to using copper or those metals or materials that are subject to damage in our infrastructure. It could be a problem for infrastructure. Here it says using alternatives to copper metal. Why? Because $4.63 a pound was reached in 2011. Okay, turn it back to Jim.
Again, there's no one silver bullet when it comes to keeping people away from your substations or your pole grounds. But what we found out after our first case of substation copper theft was that we put back copper. Guess what? They came back again, took that copper. They came back a third time and took that copper. So we kind of figured out pretty quickly we were feeding the pigeons. There's just no end to this. So we had to kind of get into the human psyche and think, well, we need to stop this. It says no one silver bullet, but the first thing we did was start putting copper-clad steel back in. And we also eventually made that part of our standard for all new construction. Because we kind of thought from this day forward, we don't see this problem going away. It's going to be here for a while. We also use signage on our substations. And we put out notices to the community. We started working with our local statewide association. We started visiting scrap dealers. In fact, 2 weeks ago, my scrap dealer came by and said, hey, I got a piece of this copper-clad steel brought in from somebody. I think it was Tennessee Power and Light they tried to steal from. He goes, it hung up on my magnet. When they run all that stuff through, they separate the ferrous from non-ferrous, the magnet, and so I thought, what is copper doing sticking to the magnet? So they're starting to recognize they've got a problem too. They don't want to buy this stuff.
This is just a list of users that are using copper-clad steel. It's not by any means complete. The intention here is to let people understand it's not new and it's not unused, and therefore you would not be new to trying it, you would not be the guinea pig, you would not be the one that's the first trial. We got a substantial increase. Last year there was about 44 utilities on this list, and now you have over 67, and it's not even a complete list. Please notice in the upper right up there is Northwest Public Power, which, by the way, I don't know that I explained this in the very beginning. Jim and I are introducing ourselves, and I think I might have forgotten. Our intention here, what NRECA was asking us to do, is to provide you with a case study so that you have an example, and that this is why NW Power is being represented by Jim, so that you can see what the experience was.
Okay, every Monday morning, it seemed like we come in and find one or two substations been broken into in the course of the weekend, especially if it was a 3-day weekend. They really like doing that. The criminal investigations, that's exactly what they are. You know, the police come out, they take a record. That's about the gist of it all. I mean, unless they have anything to go on, they're not going to go any further. I do suggest this, though. If you intend to prosecute, make sure you accumulate your true cost of what that theft is. You may only lose $200 of copper wire. You've got 3 guys, you've got crew, you've got a truck, you've got people taking off other jobs. So what you want to do is give the police enough dollar figure that it rolls into a felony category or a major misdemeanor category. Otherwise, they won't pay that much attention to it and won't prosecute it as aggressively. So make sure that you get all your dollars into that. But we're getting hit, the same subs are getting hit multiple times. And like I said, we were just feeding the pigeons. It didn't stop until we put the copper-clad back in there. We put signs, like I said, on our substations to deter people. We put signs inside the substations now, letting them know it's not even good for us. I can't do anything. So it was averaging us about $3,000 to $5,000 a sub. I think our last total, I think we're into about $150,000 right now. Total damage, so over the course of like 2.5 to 3 years. And last year, I think we had 1 incident. And recently we had one in which I tried to steal a copper-clad. We'll get to that in a minute. That made our guys feel really good to see what happened when they tried to steal it. And like I said, we did put up, we started off by putting up these basic game cameras, because you can spend up to $50,000 to $100,000 in a substation trying to catch people. And like I said, you really don't want to be in the police business. It's a drawn-out affair. It's hard to do it. But we did do it in one case. We did catch some people. Like I said earlier, the tin copper approach did not work. They figured that out early on. The criminal investigations, quite often, we did have like an alarm go off. We had some infrared alarms out there. By the time the police would get there, the perpetrators would be gone. They had lookouts, so they knew. They saw the county sheriff coming down the road, just get the heck out of Dodge. So trying to catch these folks is probably the best 50-50 shot. So again, we went back to basic human philosophy of let's just don't let them in there. Don't give them a reason to be in there. So like I said, we changed the copper-clad steel for above and below grade connections. It's not very complicated to do if you're thinking from a tooling standpoint, your exothermic welding or anything. It's all there, it's all available. It's all in the same price range of what you're using. I think the total tool conversion, that's including a hydraulic hand cutter, is about $2,500 to go with the copper-clad. So it's not a budget breaker by no means. Again, we put signs saying that the copper-clad has no scrap value, and then we used a newscast, which I'm going to show you here in a minute, to spread the word of what we were doing, and that really seemed to have a big impact too.
This is KCTV 5 News at 10.
This surveillance video exposes a crime that's happening across the metro. But what this guy is doing is getting more difficult because of how companies are fighting back. KCTV 5's Betsy Webster is live to explain how this move could cut down on the crime for good. Betsy?
Well, Karen, the problem is theft, wire theft from utilities. The usual tool, a big old pair of bolt cutters. But at least one power company is now replacing the stolen wire with a material much harder to move.
These are the kind of things that they're cutting. small lengths of this copper wire.
The most recent theft at Northwest Electric's Dry Fork substation involved 48 feet of that conductor cable and plenty of risk.
It doesn't take very long to have contact with that to electrocute you. At the very least, someone would end up mutilated.
The thief took the conduit one clip at a time, as you can see from this montage the company's operations director edited for us. The whole thing goes 2 hours. When detectives saw it, they recognized the man right away. When they stopped him at this Liberty intersection in November, they found tools of the trade and a bag of what looked like meth in his car. With the help of Google Maps and a GPS they placed on that car, they were just steps behind an earlier wire theft, this one at a cell phone tower in Lawson, where the thief went 20 feet up to cut the copper. Now, the silver-colored cable the thief snipped in Excelsior Springs has been replaced with a copper-color kind that actually contains less of that money-making metal.
This is copper-coated steel.
The standard stuff is a copper core with tin coating. The copper-coated steel costs the same for the utility, but is useless to a thief looking to cash in.
It's just as effective electrically, but it has no scrap value.
It's also less pliable, requiring special tools, but the extra effort required to work with it will be worth it to Northwest Electric if it stops the stealing.
That's my hope, because if the incentive's not there, the problem won't be here.
Now, the man who was charged with that theft is 31-year-old Brett Morrow. He was arrested and charged earlier this week and has since posted bond. McDowell says that each theft they get costs the electric cooperative $2,000 to $3,000, and that also takes crews away from the routine maintenance that helps them to keep the system running smoothly. Reporting live in Clay County, Missouri, I'm Betsy Webster, KCTV5 News.
Just a little footnote, we prosecuted and struck a deal with the court. That gentleman's paying us $150 a month probably for the rest of his life, but he's not in jail. People in jail have a hard time making payments, regular payments, and not really enemies for the rest of their lives. So we actually got 2 different people right now making restitution to the co-op theft that we caught. Okay, again, like I said, there's a mentality part of it that we really looked at. I wouldn't go into a substation at night, save my life with a pair of pliers with them, and usually get some steel. It's copper. But people do risky ventures based on the fact they don't think they're going to be one that gets caught. People run across highways knowing if they get hit, they're dead. It ain't going to happen to me. So we're not going to keep them from trying this. So we realized that that was something we're not going to really prevent. The only thing we could do is just remove the reason for that action. And there's really no reward for them to try to beat the odds, and there's nothing in there for them to get. And after a copper theft, replacing the copper with copper, we found, obviously early on that didn't modify behavior. They came back. It was only after we started using something they didn't want that they said it's just not worth the venture. Now, this is the fun part. About a month ago, like I said, we had started putting in the copper-clad steel in our new subs and anything that got broke into. This is a piece of copper-clad steel that was found in the sub next to a pair of bolt cutters, which are in police custody right now. The bolt cutters are the kind that copper thieves use, and the kind from a hardware store. The jaws were gnarled up on it. You couldn't cut anything with it. They'd gotten through maybe 3 or 4 wires and gave up, and they left. And when our guys walked in there, they were just chuckling. They thought that was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. They said, I hope they spent 3 hours getting through those 3 wires. Because if you know your construction crews, they don't like having to clean up after messes. And this wasn't a very big mess for them. So, again, we started using signs. Put these on the outside of our sub to let people know. And we also work with their state agency. This has had an impact. They think we've seen overall through the state about 50% reduction in copper theft, because I think we haven't really given out very many $1,000 bills, but what we have done is let these guys know there's people looking at them. So they're looking over their shoulder now, and they know it's apparent to us, and we're going to do something about it. That's been very effective too. It's not one silver bullet, it's a combination of things. We're working in unison. We have just about stopped our copper theft completely. We got down to this last incident, which was actually kind of humorous when they tried to cut that steel.
Okay, we're going to rush along here a little bit from a time standpoint, so I'll just go through this quickly. Any questions afterwards? Be glad to meet with you afterwards, but we have another presentation coming in here in a few minutes. NESC has recognized copper-clad steel in their Section 93 under grounding, so it is a recognized material. Good, very important new information just recently added to IEEE section on grounding. Section 11.2.2 says that you can use manufacturers' tested fusing current data. Now, it is something that will help you optimize size to cost. Okay, RUS does list certain sizes, and you can also apply those sizes that aren't listed. You can apply to RUS. They do the testing on it, and they will accept copper-clad steel. They're quite familiar with it. This is a quick look at pricing, and I guess the simple answer here is, earlier you heard on the video that the price of copper versus copper-clad steel is about the same. Not true. If you see the chart right here, I won't go into all the detail other than to say it saves you anywhere between 5% and 32%. You were using tin copper, of course, it's even less of a it's less costly than if it was just copper. In either case, you start with a lower price, and of course, if it's not stolen, you have 100% savings. Jim, you want to say anything to that?
Real briefly, I just say that, you know, the initial cost is less than copper. We're looking at the long-term range, and one thing I know about co-ops, we look out 20, 30 years in the future. The successes we have today are based upon good, wise thinking that happened 20, 30 years ago. If we don't start doing something now, 20, 30 years from now, the problem's not going to go away. It's still going to be there, and we've not solved anything. So if we make it through 10% of our system this year, 10% next year, whatever the case may be, eventually, we won't have to worry about that anymore. Now, if you have wood poles, the same situation. If you're a distribution co-op, I'll give you a little hint, something I saw in Illinois they were doing, the pole company would do it. They will cut a slice up the side of your pole with like a circular saw, about a ½ inch hole. You can bury your wire in that hole, and they won't even go for that. So a lot of people have come up with a lot of good ideas. I strongly suggest you talk to everybody in the industry. You'll get some good suggestions. Okay, we'll finish it up. Does anybody have any questions?
I got an idea from what you said that you are actually going back and replacing your copper with this. Was I wrong in understanding that this was a system-wide change-out, or is it strictly on new construction?
It's strictly on new construction. We've got 150 substations. It's going to be a while to get through all of them. I'd say we've probably gotten through. We've had over 15 different ones get robbed. Those we've already changed out. When we go in and put in new breakers, anything we replace the overhead grounds, the equipment grounds, the tire lay grounds, copper-clad wherever we can, where it's visible. Obviously, we're not digging up underground, but anything, when we go into the stuff to do maintenance like that, we look at that situation, see the history of it. Okay, dokie. Any other questions? Good.
So let's say somebody does manage to get through a section of copper-clad steel, then once realize that they're not going to fit anywhere out. How easy is it to patch that?
Okay, we use a hydraulic cutter, just a little husky hydraulic cutter. It makes a nice square cut. CAD wheel makes all the thermal wheel makes all the splices for it. But another piece, it's got all the characteristics of copper. Everything's the same except you try cutting it. Good luck. It's steel. Bends easy. That's not an issue. It's just it's a little tough to cut with a regular pair of cutters. And the other bullet points here I think I have is again the lower initial cost made the decision easy to make there. We weren't investing more. We were actually investing less in the material. But bottom line, we see this as a long-term investment. We don't see the problem going away. Copper's going up. I don't think the economy is improving that greatly. But all it's going to have is two types of criminals out there. You've got the druggies, which unfortunately deserve, I think, maybe the meth capital of the world. And then I've been hearing more and more about organized crime still in copper. So either case, I don't think this is going to go away. How it impacts your co-op is going to be completely different how it impacts somebody on the other side of the state. So your solutions may all vary, but we all come up with the same thing. We've got to get them out of our facilities because they're looking for copper. If they don't find copper, they won't come back. Thank you very much.